Princess Lyra walked slowly through the palace gardens, her bare feet brushing against the soft, glowing grass. The twin suns of Sci-Fi were setting, casting long shadows across the intricate crystal fountains and colorful flowers that bloomed in every shape and size. Birds with shimmering feathers sang gentle songs, their melodies echoing softly through the air. The gardens, a place of peace and life, felt almost like a world apart from the chaos that had touched the galaxy. Even so, Lyra could not shake the shadows of the past. The war had ended months ago, but its memory lingered. Entire planets had been scarred. Stars that once shone brightly, now dulled by smoke and debris. She had been only a child when it began, playing in these very gardens, while soldiers and diplomats worked in hurried, serious voices around her. She remembered the fear, the endless whispers of danger, and the feeling that the universe itself had grown too big, too dark, for anyone to control. Yet today, she tried to forget all that. Today, she let herself walk slowly, enjoying the soft breeze and the sweet scent of Sci-Fi's flowers. But even as she inhaled the warm, fragrant air, her mind wandered to memories long buried. Memories of a human boy who had visited Sci-Fi when she was only 8 years old. He had been polite, awkward, and far taller than the other children she knew. He had laughed too loudly, stumbled over strange words, and yet somehow, he had managed to make her laugh more than anyone else. Lyra smiled faintly at the memory. "Ethan," she whispered under her breath. She could hardly believe it had been so many years ago. She had not seen him since that visit. But stories of his courage had reached her even across the galaxy. Humans, she had learned, were different than Xytherans. They were inventive, persistent, and strangely fearless in the face of danger. It seemed almost impossible to imagine the small, clumsy boy she had known becoming a hero of the human race. Far away, on a distant human starship, Ethan sat alone in his quarters. The ship hummed quietly, lights flickering softly across his uniform. He was no longer the boy who had chased after a laughing princess across palace corridors. Time and war had transformed him into a man of discipline, strength, and quiet determination. He had fought in battles that had scarred him, seen planets burn, and saved countless lives. He had been called a hero by humans and aliens alike, though he never fully understood why. He stared at the small hologram of Sci-Fi he had kept hidden in his cabin, an image of the twin suns and shimmering waterfalls. Memories of a laughing girl, a curious princess, came unbidden, filling his mind with warmth he had long thought lost. The war had taken much from him, but memories of kindness and friendship remained untouched, bright and fragile, like glass. Back in the palace, Lyra wandered past a fountain shaped like a soaring dragon, its crystalline wings catching the sunlight. She paused, resting her hand on the cool water, and thought about the summit that was to take place tomorrow. Leaders from across the galaxy would arrive, including humans. She knew the humans had played a crucial role in ending the war, but she did not expect to meet the one who had become the most celebrated among them. And yet, a quiet feeling in her chest told her that fate had something unexpected in store. The palace had always been a place of order and beauty, but now it felt fragile. Guards patrolled silently, their uniforms gleaming under the last light of the suns. Diplomats hurried through corridors, carrying messages and preparing for meetings that could shape the future of Sci-Fi. Lyra's position as princess required her to smile, to be gracious and welcoming. Yet inside, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness she could not explain. She remembered the first time she had met him. The boy had stumbled into the palace gardens, his human uniform too big, his boots squeaking awkwardly on the polished stone. He had looked around with wide eyes, amazed at everything from the crystal fountains to the floating gardens that defied gravity. Lyra had laughed at his amazement, and he had laughed too, though awkwardly, unsure how to respond to a princess. They had spent the day exploring secret corridors, sharing stories, and even sneaking snacks from the kitchens. It had been a day of simple joy, innocent and fleeting. A bright moment in a world that was slowly growing dangerous. And then, the war had come. For years, messages had been scarce. Lyra had grown taller, wiser, more cautious, while Ethan had been fighting across star systems, facing challenges that no child could imagine. She had heard only fragments of his heroism, tales of courage and sacrifice that seemed almost too great for the human boy she had once known. Yet those stories stirred something deep inside her, a mixture of pride, longing, and an unspoken hope that she might see him again. Lyra's thoughts were interrupted by a soft sound behind her. Turning, she saw her personal aide, a Zytheran named Cyril, bow politely. "Princess Lyra," Cyril said, his voice gentle but firm. "The council requests your presence. Preparations for the summit are nearly complete. There is news regarding the human delegation." Lyra nodded slowly, brushing a strand of her silver hair behind her ear. "Thank you, Cyril. I will be there shortly." She took one last look at the fountain, at the sun slipping below the horizon, and felt a strange flutter of anticipation. She did not yet know why. But something told her that meeting the humans, and perhaps one human in particular, would change everything. Meanwhile, Ethan's journey continued. His ship passed through the outer rim of Zythera's star system, engines humming with quiet power. His mind replayed the memories of his childhood visit, the laughter of a small princess, the feeling of wonder at an alien world so full of life. He had not expected to return here. Not as a soldier, not as a hero. And yet, the mission demanded his presence. Diplomacy was as important as battle now, and the humans were tasked with ensuring the fragile peace endured. As the ship descended toward Zythera, Ethan felt a strange mixture of anticipation and nerves. He had faced war, chaos, and death. Yet nothing compared to the uncertainty of returning to a place that had once been home to fleeting childhood memories. The planet's surface grew closer, revealing vast forests, sparkling rivers, and cities of shining spires. He could see the palace in the distance, perched atop a hill like a gem. His heart beat faster. Something told him that this visit, like the one so long ago, would leave a mark he could not forget. Back in the palace, Lyra walked through the grand halls, her footsteps echoing softly. Paintings of ancestors, leaders, and heroes lined the walls, their eyes seeming to follow her as she passed. She paused before one painting of her father, the king, standing tall in his ceremonial armor, a symbol of strength and wisdom. "We must honor those who fought," she whispered to herself, "but we must also hope for those who survive." She entered the council chamber, where advisors and dignitaries were already gathered. The room buzzed with preparation. Maps and star charts spread across tables. Discussions about treaties, trade, and security plans filled the air. Yet through it all, Lyra's mind wandered, imagining the boy she had once known, now a man of courage and renown. Would he recognize her? Would he remember the small, awkward princess who had laughed at his clumsiness? As evening fell, the palace grew quiet. Servants lit lanterns, their soft glow illuminating the gardens outside. Lyra returned to her private balcony, looking up at the first stars appearing in the darkening sky. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the excitement and nervousness building within her. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "I will see him again. The boy who was once a friend, the hero who may still be a friend." Far above, Ethan's ship entered Zythera's orbit. The planet looked peaceful from space, its colors vibrant against the blackness of the universe. He felt a small smile tug at his lips. For the first time in many years, he allowed himself a sense of hope, a belief that even after war, connections from the past could endure. He did not yet know how this meeting would unfold, or whether Lyra would recognize him. But one thing was certain. The boy he had been, and the hero he had become, were both coming back to a place that had once been a world of wonder, a world of beginnings. And as the twin suns finally disappeared, leaving a sky full of stars, both Princess Lyra and Commander Ethan felt the quiet pull of destiny. Two lives, separated by time, war, and distance, were about to intersect once more. And neither could imagine how much that meeting would change everything for them, for Sci-Fi, and for the galaxy itself. The night deepened, and the palace rested in silence. But in the hearts of the princess and the soldier, a story long paused was about to begin again. A story of friendship, courage, and the enduring power of hope, ready to shine even in the shadow of the past. The next morning, the palace was alive with movement. Servants carried trays of exotic fruits and steaming drinks, their careful steps echoing softly along marble floors. Dignitaries from distant planets arrived in shimmering robes and sleek uniforms, filling the grand halls with a mixture of languages and accents. The human delegation was scheduled to arrive soon, and Princess Lyra felt a flutter of nerves in her chest she could not explain. She adjusted the folds of her gown, its soft, flowing fabric catching the early morning sunlight. The dress was simple yet elegant, reflecting her position as the heir of Sci-Fi, but Lyra wished it could somehow hide the emotions twisting inside her. Excitement, curiosity, and a faint, unacknowledged hope made her stomach tighten. Today, she would meet the humans, but among them, she had been told, was a soldier whose name had become known across galaxies, a hero who had helped end the war. Lyra had heard the stories. Battles fought, across star systems. Strategies so clever, they had surprised enemies. Acts of courage that had saved entire colonies. Yet despite these tales, she could not shake the memory of the boy who had once run through her gardens, chasing butterflies and laughing at clumsy birds. Could he truly be the same person? Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime. The palace gates were opening, and she knew it was time. Accompanied by her aide Cyril, Lyra descended the marble steps into the welcoming courtyard. The sunlight sparkled on the polished stone, and banners of Sci-Fi fluttered gently in the warm breeze. Ships descended from the sky, sleek human starships landing with graceful precision. Soldiers and diplomats disembarked, their faces serious, but polite. Lyra watched carefully, her eyes scanning each figure, until one caught her attention. He was taller than she remembered, broader in the shoulders, carrying himself with a calm authority that commanded attention. His dark hair was cropped short, and his uniform, simple yet functional, hinted at countless battles fought and victories earned. For a moment, Lyra could not breathe. She stepped forward, instinctively, and her heart skipped. It was him, the boy who had chased her across palace corridors so many years ago. Ethan, the war hero. Ethan's eyes, sharp and observant, scanned the courtyard. When they landed on Lyra, a flicker of recognition crossed his face. His expression softened, though he remained composed, the years of discipline and duty evident in his posture. Memories of laughter, shared secrets, and playful mischief returned, warm and sudden. For a brief moment, the soldier vanished, replaced by the boy who had marveled at floating gardens and crystal fountains. Lyra forced herself to bow gracefully, the formal gesture of Scythian respect. "Welcome to Sci-Fi, Commander Ethan," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. "It is an honor to have you here." Ethan inclined his head in reply. "Princess Lyra," he said, his voice calm but carrying a note of warmth that startled her. "The honor is mine. Sci-Fi is even more beautiful than I remember." The words struck her. Even now, after everything, he still remembered. He had not forgotten the gardens, the fountains, the laughter of a small princess long ago. Lyra felt a soft smile tug at her lips, though she kept her posture formal. "The palace has changed much since your last visit," she said, "but I hope the memories of your first time here remain pleasant." "They do," Ethan replied. "And some memories are impossible to forget." His gaze lingered on her for a heartbeat longer than politeness demanded, and Lyra felt a warmth she could not hide. Cyril, ever observant, stepped forward with a respectful bow. "Commander, the council awaits you for the opening briefing." He gestured toward the grand hall, its doors open and polished to perfection. Ethan nodded, his attention briefly flicking to Lyra before he followed Cyril. Lyra turned to follow as well, keeping a careful pace. Her mind raced. How could she speak freely to someone now? A hero. Someone whose life had been shaped by war and duty. And yet, the boy she remembered, the friend of her childhood, seemed alive beneath the surface. She could sense it in his eyes. The faint spark of curiosity and mischief that had once made him impossible to ignore. Inside the grand hall, representatives from multiple planets were already seated. Holographic maps floated above the tables, showing star systems, trade routes, and territories once contested by war. Lyra took her place at the head of the chamber, her posture regal, but her attention on Ethan. The briefing began with formalities, speeches of gratitude, and plans for interstellar cooperation. Ethan spoke briefly, his words measured, conveying humanity's commitment to peace. Though the council listened intently, Lyra's eyes never left him. Each gesture, each pause, reminded her of the boy she had known, the way he had laughed at small mistakes, the way he had been unafraid to ask questions, even of powerful adults. When the formal briefing concluded, there was a short break. Lyra moved closer to the balcony, the sound of distant waterfalls and soft wind filling the hall. Ethan followed, his movements deliberate, respectful of her space yet close enough to feel like an echo from the past. "You've changed," Lyra said softly, almost as if she were speaking to herself. Ethan smiled faintly, a hint of the boy she remembered breaking through the soldier's composure. "So have you," he replied. "I hardly recognize the princess who once ran through these gardens, chasing butterflies and daring the palace guards to catch her." Lyra laughed softly, a sound that seemed to echo like a bell across the balcony. "Of course," Ethan said. "How could I forget the girl who had more courage than all the soldiers in the palace combined?" The words warmed her heart. For a moment, the walls of formality and duty fell away. She could see the boy she had played with, the friend she had trusted, shining beneath the weight of years. "And yet," she said, her tone softening, "that same courage must have helped you survive the war." "It did," Ethan said, his gaze drifting to the distant mountains beyond the palace. "It also helped me remember why I fight, not just for strategy or orders, but for people. People who deserve a future without fear." Lyra felt a swell of pride, a recognition not only of his heroism but of his humanity. She remembered the boy who had shared his snacks with her, who had marveled at the simple beauty of Zethara. That boy had grown into a man who saved worlds, yet he still carried kindness within him. A sudden commotion broke her thoughts. A group of diplomats had approached, and Ethan stepped back, immediately taking his place as a soldier and representative. Lyra, too, adjusted her posture, ready to greet and guide them. Yet even in the midst of politics and ceremony, the unspoken bond between them lingered, a quiet thread stretching across time and space. After the formal greetings, Lyra found a moment to speak privately with Ethan again. They walked through a corridor lined with towering windows, sunlight spilling across polished floors. "Commander," she began, "I must ask, how do you bear the weight of so many lives depending on your decisions?" Ethan looked out at the horizon, thoughtful. "It is never easy," he said, "but I remind myself that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear." I fight for the future I hope to see. Lyra nodded slowly, absorbing the weight of his words. That is brave, she said softly. And it is why you are a hero. Yet, I see in your eyes that you carry more than pride. You carry memories, grief, and responsibility. Yes, Ethan admitted. The war taught me that victory is never simple, and heroes are not born. They are forged by necessity. But even so, there is hope. Hope that the choices we make now will matter. For the first time, Lyra felt the full reality of his presence. This was the boy she had once known. Yes, but also someone who had seen the depths of the galaxy's darkness and emerged stronger. She felt admiration, respect, and a quiet wonder at the twists of fate that had brought them back together. As the day wore on, the summit continued with discussions of trade, security, and alliances. Yet every time Lyra glanced at Ethan, she felt a connection stretching back across years, across war and distance. There was a sense of understanding that needed no words, a recognition of shared history and unspoken memories. When the sessions finally concluded, the human delegation was escorted to their quarters. Lyra lingered for a moment, standing on the balcony once more, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and violet. Ethan appeared beside her quietly, his presence steady and calm. Do you remember? Lyra asked softly. The night before you left Scythera all those years ago? Ethan turned to her, a faint smile on his lips. How could I forget? Lyra laughed quietly. We promised to be friends forever, and yet here we are, meeting again after a war that changed everything. And yet, Ethan said, his voice low but firm, some things never change. Some bonds cannot be broken by time, distance, or even war. Lyra felt her heart lift, a sense of hope blooming in her chest. Perhaps, after all the chaos, the galaxy could still hold room for friendship, courage, and trust. Perhaps the boy she had known, and the hero he had become, could walk beside her as the world healed. And as the twin suns disappeared beneath the horizon, both of them understood. This meeting was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning. The morning sun spilled golden light across Scythera, casting gentle warmth over the palace and its gardens. Princess Lyra moved through the corridors with purpose, her curiosity stronger than her nerves. Today, she would explore the palace archives, a vast collection of knowledge, history, and records of heroes. The archives were rarely open to visitors, reserved for scholars and the royal family. Yet, with the arrival of humans and the summit underway, Lyra had requested a private tour. Princess, Cyril said, falling into step beside her. The archives hold stories of Scythera and all allies who fought to protect the galaxy. It is said that no one leaves unchanged after seeing them. Lyra nodded, her silver hair catching the sunlight as they entered a towering hall lined with walls of shimmering crystal. Holographic lights floated above the floor, illuminating maps of star systems, records of battles, and portraits of leaders and soldiers. The air smelled faintly of parchment, polished metal, and a faint trace of floral incense. I want to see everything, Lyra said softly, almost to herself. The history of this war, the heroes, and perhaps him. Cyril raised an eyebrow but said nothing. He understood that Lyra's interest in Ethan went beyond diplomacy. This was personal. As they moved deeper into the archives, Lyra paused at a holographic projection showing the largest battles of the war. Stars burned, planets were scorched, and fleets clashed in brilliant displays of energy. Names and faces of heroes scrolled across the light. She had read reports before, but seeing them here, with the full weight of the battle maps, made it real. Her breath caught when a familiar name appeared. The hologram shifted, highlighting his actions during the final battle near the neutral system of Valtor 9. Animated sequences showed fleets moving under his command, enemy forces retreating, and civilians being evacuated from war zones. Ethan had devised strategies that allowed both human and alien forces to cooperate flawlessly, saving countless lives. Lyra's hands trembled slightly as she touched the projection, unable to tear her eyes away. She remembered the small boy who had tripped over palace steps, who had laughed and chased butterflies in the gardens. And now, he had become the hero of countless planets, a symbol of courage and hope. Sirel observed her silently. Commander Ethan did more than fight, Princess. He saved lives, yes, but he also inspired unity between species that once distrusted each other. His actions ended the war sooner than anyone expected. Lyra swallowed hard. I had no idea, she whispered. The boy she remembered was gone, replaced by someone far greater than she had ever imagined. Yet in the depth of her heart, she felt no fear or distance, only awe and a growing connection. The projection shifted again, this time showing personal accounts. Civilians spoke of a man who appeared on battlefields unexpectedly, guiding both human and alien forces, sharing wisdom and calming fear with a quiet confidence. Soldiers described him as strict yet fair, someone who inspired them to give their best without demanding it. Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. This was the boy who had once offered her his last piece of bread during a palace picnic. This was the boy who had laughed with her, stumbled in front of adults, and asked endless questions. And now, he had become a man whose courage shaped the galaxy itself. She turned away from the holograms, needing fresh air. The archives were magnificent, but the weight of heroism pressed upon her heart. Walking to the nearest balcony, she breathed in deeply. The gardens below glowed with morning light, and the fountains sparkled like liquid crystal. It felt like a different world, a world that had survived chaos and now held hope. A soft voice behind her startled her slightly. "Princess Lyra," said Ethan, stepping onto the balcony, his expression calm yet attentive. "I hope I am not intruding." Lyra turned quickly, her heart skipping. He had arrived silently, as always seemed to happen with him. "Commander," she said softly. I didn't hear you come." "I prefer listening," Ethan replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. "And I wanted to see the archives myself. There is much to learn from history, and it seems you already have a head start." Lyra gestured to the holographic projections behind them. I didn't know," she admitted. "I didn't realize how much you had done. You saved so many lives, not just humans, but alien lives too. You were everywhere, guiding people, making choices that changed everything." Ethan looked down, almost embarrassed by the praise. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. "The war was terrible, but there were moments that mattered, moments when one decision could save thousands. I just tried to do the right thing." "You didn't just do the right thing," Lyra said, her voice steady despite the emotion she felt. "You inspired others. You made people believe that hope was possible, even in the darkest hours. That is what makes you a hero." Ethan met her gaze. There was a long silence, broken only by the soft trickle of water from the distant gardens. For the first time since arriving on Sci-Fi, he allowed himself to speak openly about the past, about the memories that haunted him and the lives he carried in his heart. "There were nights," he said softly, "when I thought the galaxy had no future. When I thought everything I had done was not enough. But then, I remembered why I fought. Not for medals, not for glory, but for people like you, Lyra. People worth protecting." Lyra's eyes widened. The boy she had once known had always been brave, but hearing him speak now, so honest and vulnerable, made her chest ache. I never realized," she said. I never realized how much responsibility you carried. And I never realized how much courage it took to keep going." Ethan's gaze softened. "Courage comes in many forms," he said. "Sometimes it is facing a weapon in battle. Sometimes it is facing fear, doubt, or loss. And sometimes it is remembering who you are, even when the world wants you to be someone else." Lyra nodded slowly, understanding for the first time the depth of the man standing before her. He was not just a hero by title, he was a hero because he had chosen, every day, to act with honor, kindness, and courage, even when it was hard. And beneath it all, he was still the boy she had once known, still capable of laughter, curiosity, and friendship. "Do you remember me?" she asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. "The gardens? The fountains? The day we played together?" Ethan's smile widened slightly, a flicker of the boy he once was shining through. "I do," he said. "Laughing when you dared me to climb the fountain, hiding from the palace guards. All of it. How could I forget?" Lyra felt a rush of relief and happiness. The distance of years, the weight of war, and the changes in both of them had not erased the bond they shared. "It feels strange," she said softly, "to see you now, after everything. You were a boy I knew, and now you're someone who changed the galaxy." Ethan nodded. "And yet, some things remain the same," he said. "Like friendship, like trust, like the memories we carry with us. Those do not change, even if the world does." For a long moment, they stood in silence, watching the sun climb higher over Scythera. The warmth of morning light seemed to wash over them, filling the space with quiet hope. Lyra realized that the bond she had once felt as a child was no longer limited to memory. It had grown, strengthened by time, shared experiences, and mutual admiration. "You inspire me too," she said finally, her voice steady but full of emotion. "Your courage, your choices, they remind me why we must continue to protect our people, our world, and the galaxy. And your example, it gives me hope that I can do the same." Ethan looked at her, respect and warmth shining in his eyes. "You always have, even when you were a child. Courage isn't only about battle. It's about leadership, wisdom, and compassion. You have all of that, Lyra." The words lingered between them, unspoken promises of trust, friendship, and perhaps something deeper. Lyra felt a sense of calm and purpose settle over her. For the first time since the war, she felt that the future could be bright, that humans and Scytherans could work together, and that the boy she had once known had returned not only as a hero, but as a friend she could rely on. Cyril cleared his throat gently, reminding them of the time. "Princess Lyra," he said, "the council will reconvene shortly. The human delegation requests your presence." Lyra nodded, turning back to the hall. "Yes," she said softly, glancing at Ethan. "Let's go. There is still work to do, and I want to learn more from you." Ethan smiled faintly. "I will show you everything I can," he said. And in that moment, Lyra realized that this was more than a meeting of past friends. This was a union of allies, of courage, and of hope for the galaxy. And as they walked together toward the grand hall, the air seemed brighter, lighter, filled with possibility. Secrets had been revealed, bonds had been strengthened, and the first true steps toward a new future had begun. The boy she had once known was no longer just a memory, he was the hero who had shaped the galaxy, and he was standing beside her. For Princess Lyra, and for Commander Ethan, the past and present had finally merged, and the story of friendship, courage, and hope had only just begun. The sky above Scythera was unusually bright that morning, the twin suns reflecting off the crystal spires of the palace. Princess Lyra walked along the balcony, feeling the gentle breeze stir her silver hair. The peace of the summit had been comforting, but she could not shake a quiet unease. The galaxy had healed since the war, yes, but peace was always fragile. Threats could emerge anywhere, even from those thought defeated. Cyril approached, his steps quiet but purposeful. "Princess Lyra," he said, voice low. "There are unusual signals from the outer rim. Sensors indicate an unknown fleet approaching Zythera's orbit." Lyra's heart skipped. "Unknown fleet?" she asked, her voice calm but tense. "Are they hostile?" "We cannot confirm yet," Cyril replied. "But their movement suggests military precision. They may be remnants of the forces we defeated during the war." Lyra took a deep breath. "Then, we must be ready. Alert the palace defense teams and prepare the council for an emergency meeting." Meanwhile, on the human ship orbiting Zythera, Commander Ethan reviewed the sensor readings, his brow furrowed as he studied the incoming fleet. "This is no simple patrol," he said to his officers. "They are organized, heavily armed, and moving fast. Prepare the defense protocols. I want Zythera protected." Ethan's voice carried calm authority, but beneath it, a spark of determination burned. He had faced threats before, from star systems far beyond Zythera, but he knew that the best victories came from cooperation, strategy, and courage. Humans and Zytherans had already proven they could work together during the war. Now, that partnership would be tested once more. Lyra gathered the council in the Grand Hall. Holographic projections displayed the incoming fleet, their positions marked in sharp red against the serene blue of Zythera's star system. "They are organized," Lyra said, her voice steady. "We do not know their intent, but we must assume they are dangerous. We will defend our planet, our people, and our future." The council members nodded, their expressions a mixture of concern and resolve. Zythera had survived many trials, but this threat was immediate and unpredictable. Ethan entered the hall, his presence commanding attention. "Princess Lyra, council members," he said, "we have faced enemies like this before. We will face them again, with careful planning, courage, and unity. The strength of humans and Zytherans together can overcome this threat." Lyra felt a surge of pride and reassurance. Seeing Ethan, the boy who had once run through her gardens, now a hero leading strategy and inspiring confidence, made her believe in the possibilities of courage and collaboration. The first step was to evacuate civilian zones near potential targets. Lyra coordinated with palace officials, while Ethan oversaw the deployment of defense fleets. Humans and Zytherans worked side by side, blending technology, strategy, and intuition. Small squads of scouts were sent to gather intelligence, while Zytheran energy shields were prepared to protect key cities. Hours passed in tense preparation. Lyra watched from the palace command balcony as fleets moved in formation. Lasers and energy shields glowing in the distance. The unknown fleet drew closer, their intentions still unclear but their threat undeniable. Suddenly, a scout ship returned with news. "Princess Lyra, Commander Ethan," the scout reported. "The fleet is armed for battle. They are remnants of the war forces, seeking revenge and control. They will strike within the hour." Lyra's jaw tightened. "Then we do not wait," she said. "We meet them with courage and strategy. We protect our people." Ethan approached her side. "We will fight together," he said. "Your knowledge of Zythera and your leadership are invaluable. Together, we can hold them off and ensure no lives are lost unnecessarily." Lyra nodded. "Then let's do it, not as princess and soldier, but as protectors of our world." The first wave of enemy ships entered Zythera's orbit. Their movements were precise, almost mechanical, but the combined forces of humans and Zytherans were ready. Ethan issued commands calmly, positioning fleets to intercept without risking civilian zones. Lyra monitored energy shields and evacuation routes, ensuring safety while the battle unfolded. As enemy ships fired, Xytheran shields flared with bright light, deflecting energy blasts. Human ships responded with precision, targeting critical points while avoiding collateral damage. The first skirmishes tested the coordination between species, but Ethan's leadership and Lyra's understanding of Xythera's technology allowed them to adapt quickly. From the palace balcony, Lyra observed the battlefield. Her heart raced as she watched ships maneuvering, lasers cutting across space, and shields shimmering like crystal in sunlight. Yet, she felt no fear, only determination. This was a test of courage, of strategy, and of unity, and she knew they would succeed. Ethan noticed her gaze. "Princess Lyra," he said, "your presence here strengthens our people. They see leadership and courage. That is as important as any weapon." Lyra felt warmth at his words. "And your presence inspires them too," she replied. "We fight not just for survival, but for hope. That is why we cannot fail." The enemy fleet pushed forward, attempting to break Xythera's defenses. A particularly large ship moved directly toward the palace city, its energy cannons charged. Lyra's pulse quickened. "Commander Ethan," she called. "That ship is heading for the city. We must stop it." Ethan's eyes narrowed, assessing the situation. "But it will require precise coordination. Can you control the palace shields and guide our local forces?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, I will do everything I can." Ethan directed human fleets to flank the enemy ship, while Lyra focused the palace's energy shields on critical points. The collaboration was seamless, each action reinforcing the other. The enemy ship fired, but the shields held. Human lasers struck weak points, and the coordinated effort forced the enemy to retreat. The battle continued for hours. Each wave of enemy ships tested their strategy, courage, and resolve. Yet with every maneuver, humans and Xytherans adapted, learning from the enemy and using creativity and teamwork to gain advantage. Ethan's calm leadership combined with Lyra's deep understanding of her planet proved unstoppable. During a brief lull, Lyra and Ethan met on a secure balcony overlooking the battle. Sweat and dust streaked their faces, but their eyes shone with determination. "You are incredible," Lyra said, breathing heavily. "I knew you were brave, but seeing you lead, seeing you inspire so many, it is beyond words." Ethan shook his head slightly. "We are incredible together," he said. "You lead with heart and intelligence. Your people trust you, and I trust you. That is why we win. Not just through strength, but through unity." Lyra smiled, feeling a bond deepen between them, stronger than ever before. "Then let us finish this. Our people are counting on us." The final wave of enemy ships advanced, larger and more aggressive than before. They aimed for critical cities, hoping to strike fear into Xythera's population. Lyra adjusted the shields, focusing energy on vulnerable points, while Ethan directed human and Xytheran fleets to intercept. The battle reached its climax, as Lyra coordinated a massive shield alignment with Ethan's fleet maneuvers. The enemy ships, unable to penetrate the defenses, faltered and scattered. One by one, they were captured or forced to retreat. When the last ship withdrew, the battlefield grew quiet. Xythera's cities were safe, civilians unharmed, and the combined forces of humans and Xytherans had proven their strength. Lyra leaned on the balcony rail, breathing deeply. "It is over," she said softly. "Our people are safe." Ethan joined her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Thanks to you," he said. "Your courage, your leadership, and your vision made this possible. I only guided the forces. You inspired them." Lyra looked at him, pride and admiration shining in her eyes. "No," she said firmly. We did this together. Humans, Zytherans, and hope. For the first time since the summit began, a sense of peace settled over the palace. The battle was won, not by sheer force alone, but by strategy, courage, and unity. Humanity had once again proven its resilience, ingenuity, and bravery, while Zytherans had shown that wisdom, compassion, and leadership could match any weapon. As the sun set over Zythera, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet, Lyra and Ethan stood side by side. The twin suns reflected off the crystal spires, casting long shadows that mingled with the soft glow of the palace gardens. "This is what hope feels like," Lyra whispered, her gaze fixed on the horizon. Ethan smiled, his eyes reflecting both relief and quiet joy. "Yes," he said, "and it is something worth protecting. Together." In that moment, Lyra realized that the boy she had once known, the friend who had laughed with her in the gardens, had become a hero, not because of power or skill alone, but because of courage, integrity, and the ability to inspire those around him. And that hero had returned, side by side with her, to ensure that Zythera and the galaxy had a future worth living for. The palace rested in the warm glow of evening light, but in the hearts of Lyra, Ethan, and their people, the fire of hope burned brighter than ever. The galaxy had faced a threat, and humanity, along with Zythera, had risen to meet it not through fear, but through courage, unity, and unwavering determination. And as night fell, the stars above shimmered like beacons, a reminder that even after darkness, light and heroism endure. The sky above Zythera was calm, the twin suns casting soft light across the palace gardens. After the recent battle, peace had returned. The enemy fleet had been driven away, their plans thwarted by courage, strategy, and the unity of humans and Zytherans. Princess Lyra stood on the palace balcony, watching the citizens below. People were slowly emerging from shelters and homes, their faces filled with relief and joy. Children ran freely, their laughter ringing through the air, while families embraced after hours of uncertainty. The sight brought warmth to her heart. Despite the darkness they had faced, life on Zythera remained vibrant, full of hope and promise. Beside her, Commander Ethan stood tall, his posture steady but relaxed. The battle had tested them, but together, they had succeeded. Humans and Zytherans had proven that cooperation and courage could overcome even the most organized threats. Yet, beyond strategy and victory, both of them knew that something deeper had grown between them, an unspoken bond, forged by shared history, trust, and admiration. Lyra turned to him, her silver hair glinting in the sunlight. Ethan shook his head, a faint smile on his lips. "No, Princess. It is because of all of us humans, Zytherans, and leaders like you who inspire courage. I only did what I had to do. You guided your people. You inspired them. That is what made the difference." Lyra's eyes softened. "You underestimate yourself," she said. "You didn't just guide fleets and soldiers. You gave hope. You reminded us all that courage matters, even in the darkest hours." For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the peaceful city below. The weight of the past battles, the uncertainty, and the fear had lifted, leaving only gratitude, respect, and the quiet joy of survival. Later that morning, the palace held a formal celebration to honor those who had defended Zythera. Dignitaries from multiple planets attended, and holographic displays highlighted the contributions of every human and Zytheran soldier involved in the defense. Lyra, dressed in her ceremonial gown, walked through the grand hall with grace and confidence. The hall gleamed with polished crystal, its walls reflecting sunlight like 1,000 tiny stars. She paused before the central display, where holograms depicted the recent battle. Starships maneuvered expertly, shields flared, and brave soldiers faced danger with unwavering determination. At the center of the display was Ethan, coordinating fleets, making split-second decisions, and guiding both humans and Zytherans to safety. "Commander Ethan," Lyra announced, her voice echoing through the hall. "Today we honor not only the hero of this battle, but a man whose courage and leadership have inspired countless lives. You remind us that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it." Ethan stepped forward, bowing slightly in respect. "Thank you, Princess Lyra," he said, his tone humble. "I am honored. But this victory belongs to everyone who fought alongside us." Humans and Zytherans together proved that courage and unity can overcome any threat. The council members and citizens applauded, and Ethan allowed himself a small, genuine smile. For years, he had carried the weight of battles and the memory of lives lost. Yet today, in this moment of recognition, he felt the quiet relief of having made a difference, of having kept people safe. After the ceremony, Lyra invited Ethan to walk with her through the palace gardens. The soft glow of the twin suns reflected in the crystal fountains, and the gentle breeze carried the fragrance of blooming flowers. For a moment, the galaxy seemed peaceful, as though all the battles and dangers were far behind them. "You know," Lyra said, her voice light but warm, "I never imagined that the boy who once ran through these gardens would become the hero who saved our planet." Ethan smiled faintly. "And I never imagined that the small, curious princess would one day lead her people with such courage and wisdom." Lyra tilted her head, curious. "And what is that?" "The bond we share," he said quietly. "Friendship, trust, and the memories of the past. They remain, no matter the years, no matter the distance." Lyra felt her heart swell. The boy she had played with, the friend she had trusted, was still here not only as a hero, but as someone who understood her. Someone who had shared her memories and now shared her present. As they walked deeper into the gardens, they came across the fountain where they had first met years ago. Lyra knelt, running her fingers over the cool, polished crystal. "Do you remember this?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. Ethan crouched beside her. "I do," he said softly. "I remember falling in the water, trying to climb the fountain, and laughing with you when the guards shouted at us. I remember thinking, even then, that life was full of wonder." Lyra laughed quietly, a sound like music. "And yet, here we are," she said. "Grown, changed, and yet, somehow connected. Still." "Yes," Ethan agreed. "Some connections last forever. Some friendships survive the galaxy itself." For a long moment, they sat by the fountain, speaking quietly of their memories, of the war, and of the lessons they had learned. Lyra shared stories of Zythera during the dark days, of families hiding in shelters, of small acts of courage by ordinary citizens. Ethan spoke of battles fought across star systems, of soldiers who had inspired him, and of the hope that had kept him moving even when victory seemed impossible. Through their conversation, the distance of years melted away. The child and the boy were gone, replaced by leaders who had faced war and danger, yet still carried the same sense of compassion, curiosity, and courage. As evening approached, the palace held a final ceremony to honor unity between humans and Zytherans. The plaza outside the palace overflowed with citizens, their cheers and applause echoing across the gardens. Holographic displays showed heroes from both species, celebrating victories and acts of bravery. Lyra stepped onto the stage beside Ethan, her silver hair glowing in the fading sunlight. "Today," she announced, "we honor not just victory, but unity. We honor courage, friendship, and hope. Humans and Zytherans have faced darkness together and emerged stronger. Today, we celebrate not only the heroes of battle, but the heroes of heart and spirit." Ethan's eyes met hers, And he nodded. The greatest victories, he said, are not only in battle, but in the courage to protect, to inspire, and to trust. Today, we celebrate all who chose that path. The crowd erupted in applause. Citizens cheered, children waved, and families embraced. For Lyra and Ethan, this was more than recognition. It was proof that their efforts, and the efforts of countless others, had created hope that would last for generations. After the celebration, Lyra and Ethan walked back to the palace gardens, their footsteps slow, enjoying the quiet after the storm of battle and ceremony. I feel different, Lyra said softly. The past, the war, the uncertainty, it all feels lighter now. Because we faced it, Ethan replied. Together. And because the future is in our hands, we can choose hope, courage, and unity every day. Lyra smiled, looking at him with admiration. You've always inspired me, Ethan. From the boy who played in my gardens to the hero who saved worlds, you remind me what courage truly means. Ethan's eyes softened. And you inspire me, Lyra. Leadership, kindness, and strength. You remind me that heroism is not only about battles, but about protecting life and hope. They walked to the highest terrace in the gardens, where twin fountains shimmered under the twin suns. The stars were beginning to appear, faintly at first, then brighter as night fell. Lyra and Ethan stood side by side, looking out over Zythera, their hearts full of pride, hope, and quiet joy. I never thought we'd see this day, Lyra said. A day where our people are safe, where humans and Zytherans are united, and where the galaxy feels peaceful. Ethan smiled. Peace is always fragile, he said. But today, we proved that courage, unity, and trust can create it. And together, we can protect it. Lyra turned to him, her voice soft but full of meaning. Thank you, Ethan. Not just for saving lives, but for reminding me that hope is real, and that courage is worth every risk. Ethan reached out, gently taking her hand. And thank you, Lyra, he said, for your wisdom, your leadership, and your heart. You have made this world, and our partnership, stronger. For a long moment, they stood there, hands clasped, hearts connected by shared history, bravery, and the promise of the future. The stars above shone brightly, reflecting the triumph and unity of the galaxy below. In the quiet of that evening, Princess Lyra and Commander Ethan realized that their story was far from over. The galaxy would face challenges again. Wars might flare, and new dangers would arise. But they had each other, and together with their people, they could face anything. As the twin suns disappeared completely, leaving the night sky full of stars, Lyra whispered, "This is only the beginning." Ethan nodded. The beginning of a future worth protecting. And under the stars of Zythera, the princess and the hero stood side by side, ready to lead, to protect, and to inspire not only as leaders, but as friends who had shared the past, survived the darkest times, and embraced the hope of a brighter tomorrow. The galaxy was safe, for now, but more importantly, courage, friendship, and hope endured, and in them, a story of humanity, heroism, and unity would live forever.